It's gonna be fun. Okay, so I'm just gonna get started. We're gonna record this and email it to absolutely everyone who signed up. Anyway, so Nina and Jordan, thank you so much for joining me today. Today with me I have Harry and Izzy. Harry is going to be doing the presentation towards the end, and Izzy's in the chat to answer any questions. Since there's only two of us, I think we'll manage. So hello to you all. Today, I'm going to be going over why accessibility is important. We're going to go over color contrast, going to look over accessible text, buttons and links, going to give you some dark mode tips, and then we're going to play a game called Is This Accessible, where we're going to test your knowledge on accessibility, see if you can spot different accessibility fails or not. And then after that, Harry's going to demo accessibility features within eShop, and then we're going to have a Q&A towards the end. So first of all, I want to begin with accessibility is not optional. Councils must do what they can due to the Digital Inclusions Act to create accessible content. This means you must know the basics. And today I'm going to try to put you in the shoes of your audience. So, first of all, I want to ask you guys a question. What percentage of your audience do you think has accessibility needs? So just pop an answer in the chat. There's only two of you, so see what you think about what percentage of your audience do you think has an accessibility need? 35%. Okay, that's actually that's a good answer. The answer actually is 65. Also, Georgia said 65%. Okay, answer is actually 20%. So it's a little bit lower. However, that's still 1 in 5. So 1 in 5 on average, members of your audience have some sort of accessibility need. This is why creating accessible content is so important to not isolate those members of your audience. So I'm going to show you some pictures of some M&Ms. And still a bit more participation. I want to ask you guys, what you think the differences and the similarities between these pictures are. So I'm going to tell you now, the way that M&Ms are positioned is exactly the same, but I just want you to look at each picture and see what is the same in each image and what is different between each image. I'm going to move my kitten off my desk. This is a really important principle because they're the same. Yep, different types of color blindness. That is correct. So to go into some more detail, the things that are the same between each of these images is the contrast actually. So if you look, the light colors stay light and the dark colors stay dark throughout all of these images. The thing that changes is something called hue, which is basically the shade of the color of the colors. So as you can see, all the colors that are the same color switch to the same color. And this is a really important principle in order to understand how others might see color. Let's go. So moving on, I'm going to show you some examples of bad for accessibility and good for accessibility contrast ratios. We're going to go into some more details in a second. As you can see on the left-hand side, we have the bad for accessibility contrast ratios. Some of them, it goes from really bad to slightly better. However, these all would be considered not accessible by the WCAG 2.2 standards. Pay close attention to this one specifically. So very close to being accessible. However, it is not. It would have to have a contrast ratio of 4.5 to 1. So this would be considered not accessible. However, the right-hand side is accessible. So it's things that are over 4.5 to 1. And this is a generalization. If this was body text, it would have to be 7 to 1. What's the name of the standards again? WCAG 2.2. We'll send out some links and some follow-up as well, and there's plenty of articles you can read on our blog as well that sort of go into more detail about it. I've actually written some of them up, some of them I believe. Okay, so let's talk about color contrast. Here's some more color contrast key things to remember. Graphical objects, so buttons, spaces, if you have like little stars on your design, you need to have a contrast ratio of 4.5 to 1. Large text, so headings, your H1s, 2s, need to have a contrast ratio of 4.5 to 1, and then small body text needs to have a 7 to 1. And you can use any contrast checker that's on the internet. They all use the same calculations. Basically, you paste in your foreground color and your background color, and it gives you a ratio. This ratio will then tell you if it passes WCAG AA or if it doesn't pass WCAG AA. So at the moment, you are only required to pass WCAG AA. AAA is a bit more stringent and isn't a required thing. However, it would be good to obviously design content as accessible as possible. However, WCAG 2.2 is the one you need to pass on at the moment. Sorry for late arrival. No problem at all. Welcome. Nice to have you. So carrying on. I'm going to try to put you in the shoes of your audience members, because it's impossible to know how everyone sees color. As you saw, there was three different names of the ways people see color, and all of them were completely different. It would be impossible to design content. Can you link us a good? Yep, Izzy's on it. Cool. Izzy's going to link the webbing. Yeah, perfect. So you can't design accessible things for every way of seeing color. So the best way to do it is to assume everyone sees it in black and white. This is why accessibility ratios are so important, and this is exactly what it's playing towards. So let me explain. The top one and the bottom one would fail WCAG color contrast ratios. The colors are really similar. However, in the middle one, it's got a very strong contrast ratio. You see that the background and the foreground are very clearly separated. As soon as you make the image black and white, you can see exactly how this works. This image is very clear. So this is how you can assume someone who may be visually impaired might see the images. Assume they see in black and white because they will only be seeing the contrast between the lights and the darks. So this is a very good way to think when you're creating accessible content. Let's move on to social icons. This is one that many people don't actually know about, and let me tell you, Isha actually makes this very easy to make social icons accessible, and we'll get into that in a second. But so every social icon set, as you can see here, is designed to pretty much work on a white background. They're accessible against the white background. Maybe Snapchat isn't, but it's a very clear logo nonetheless. However, once you start changing the background colors, excuse PowerPoint's white line around this, you see that when the background color matches some of the social icons when they're in their original coloring, they start to fade into the background. You can see that with the WeChat icon here, the line, and the WhatsApp over here. If I change the color again, you can see that Threads, TikTok, and X starts to fade away. Then here you can see Facebook, LinkedIn, even the Vimeo and the Telegrams and Skypes are kind of fading in as well. So when let's say your footer of your emails, your footer of your website is a recolored footer, and you're using social icons on there, you want to recolor your social icons so they are all one color. Because as you can see, they are a massive color of the rainbow. And it's impossible to basically make them all accessible against all types of backgrounds. So the way we do this is if you go into eShop, click on social icons, you can click on the little drop down and recolor them into a solid color. You can also take different shapes and put them in different shapes and different templates and change the sizing of them too. But basically, if we make these icons white, for example, on a blue background, that suddenly makes them accessible. But as you can see, when they are in their original colors, they start fading into the background. It's very important to remember to recolor your social icons. 1 second. Headings and logical reading. So this is one that people often get wrong. How do headings actually work? What is a H1, H2, and a H3 tag, and why am I using it? Many people think that a H1 tag is the top tag in your is the top heading in your article, in your page, in your email. H2 is the second, H3 is the third, H4 is the fourth, and that actually isn't correct. The correct way of thinking about it is thinking of it as folders almost. The example here on the right sort of explains that in more detail. Animals by breed. Then you have your dogs, your cats, and your horses. And then the drill down of that is your golden retrievers and your poodles. I can't actually read that properly without butchering it, so I'm not going to. But basically just follow this pattern. It's sort of like categorizations. Here's my big folder, here's my smaller folder, here's my breakdown of those. So make sure you structure your content logically and read your content like a screen reader would, including any alt text that might be included. So go through your text and just read it and make sure you read your alt text. Does this make sense? We're going to go into a bit more detail about alt text in a second, but obviously eShop makes it easy to change your heading types. Just click on a heading and go to the drop down at the top, and you can very easily change from heading 1 to 6. So I would like to ask you guys a question in the chat. We're going to talk about dyslexia, because dyslexia is a part of accessibility, and making content that can be read by everyone is very important. So I want to ask, how many people, what percentage of your audience, or how many people out of 10 do you think on average have dyslexia in the UK? So just throw a percentage in the chat, or do 5 and 10 people, 2 and 10 people, that kind of thing. Okay, 5 and 3. Okay, the answer, and a 4. Okay, the answer actually is 1 in 10. So that's still, on average, 10% of your audience has diagnosed dyslexia. My sister and my girlfriend are actually 2 people who do suffer from dyslexia, and I did a little test on them when I designed this PowerPoint, basically showing them this email. And this email, from a design standpoint, is actually quite a well-designed email. I believe Izzy in the chat here actually designed this email. It's a really good email. It has very clear, bold headings, good images, a nice header. However, everything's really squashed together. And the thing is, when you have dyslexia, things that are squashed together start to merge together, start to get very confusing. It starts to get very overwhelming. So what you can easily do to fix that is just add some breathing room. This is the same email, but just has a tiny bit more padding between each of the elements. And as you can see, one from a design standpoint, the second one is stunning compared to the first one. And from an accessibility perspective, it is much more clear and much more readable. And obviously, eShop has padding settings for pretty much everything you can think of. So your blocks, your containers, and you can just click on it, go down to the padding section and control it individually. Alt text. So why do we use alt text? It's actually not just for screen readers, but it is one of the reasons why we use alt text is screen readers. The second reason, which you might not actually think of, is search engines. When you use alt text on your website, a search engine will actually pick up on that alt text to decipher what the image is, and it will actually rank your website based on that alt text. It helps towards your SEO. If you type in some things related to email into Google Images, you'll see a bunch of eShop blog posts come up. If you see the alt text on those, they're always relating to email. They're always relating to that search. It's why we get shown up. And the third reason is broken images or blocked images. So I don't know if you ever had an email which has a million images invisible on it and they're all blocked. None of them are good. Obviously, if the images are blocked and you can't unblock them, or you don't want to unblock them, or your internet is slow, hovering over that little question mark to see what image is actually meant to be there, and seeing alt text that is descriptive and tells you exactly what's meant to be in that place is very useful. And obviously, eShop makes it very easy to add alt text to your images, videos, etc. Just click on it and highlight the alternate and fill in the alternate text field over there. So descriptive alt text. Let's talk about alt text for a second, because people think I just need to fill in the alt text box. I just need to put something in there and then done. Accessibility is good, right? Not really. Because alt text needs to be descriptive and tell you what is actually going on in the image. Otherwise, sometimes it's really pointless. You often see very, very simple alt text. And let me just give you an example and put it into perspective a bit. Imagine I'm on a website that's to do with fishing and fishing competitions and the biggest fish that have been fished, found, rare fish, etc. If every single image on that website was labeled fish swimming, that wouldn't really tell me much. Every single time it would be repetitive. It would basically offer no value apart from there's an image there of a fish. But if you instead said an image of a school of fish running away from their predator, or an image of a red snapper that weighs X amount, suddenly that alt text becomes very useful and very people appreciate it when they read that. Imagine your image is blocked. Imagine you are reading for a screen reader. Imagine a screen reader, every single time it came across an image, it says fish swimming, fish swimming, fish swimming. It's not productive. People with accessibility needs do require descriptive alt text in order for alt text to be as useful as possible, and just making it as descriptive as possible is the best thing you can do for that. Buttons are king. So the average font size on a mobile, depending on who you are, some people have bigger fingers than others, is 44 to 72 pixels, which means this is not to scale, but if you imagine it's like a square like this on your screen, so we'll have different sized screens. When you're pressing on your email, it's very hard to click a embedded hyperlink, especially if it's in your body text, especially if you have larger fingers, if you are visually impaired. Using a button, however, makes that clickable area much bigger, and it therefore means you can have a higher click-through rate as well, because it's more inviting to click on it. Buttons basically call out, click me. So it's very important to use buttons. But when you are using buttons, it is actually important to think about how you're using buttons. And this is probably one of the most common inaccessible things done on the internet. It's just constant read more, learn more. These buttons need to be descriptive. You see, browse campsites, read our full mission, view that, or it could even be better, read our full mission on our website. Read the PDF of this report. Learn more and read more, especially when you have multiple articles in a row, ends up being repetitive and doesn't end up offering you much information as to where the link is going. Give me 1 second. Okay. So hyperlinks. You can use hyperlinks, obviously. However, where possible, try use a button. But if you must use a hyperlink, make sure it's an accessible one. So if it's body text that you're hyperlinking, 7:1 contrast ratio. If it's body text you're hyperlinking, then you need a 4.5:1 contrast ratio. And here's some little tips as well. Be descriptive. Be descriptive with what you're hyperlinking. You see here, visit WebAIM's link text article for details. This tells you what you're clicking on. Click here for details, doesn't tell you anything. And especially if it's unclickable, definitely don't do that. Obviously, it's the bit I mentioned. If it's body text, 7.5, 7.1, 7:1 aspect ratio, sorry, contrast ratio is what you need. Make sure to test how different emails look on different email clients. We have the email forensics feature inside eShot, where you can see how your email looks on over 40 different devices. Use this feature. It is really important to see how different mailboxes open your emails, and if certain things show up different, certain colors render differently. Obviously, every single mailbox uses their own technology, so just having a quick overview of the main ones that people use, such as Apple Mail, Gmail and Outlook, is a very good way to make sure everything is looking good and accessible. I find that most difficult to describe are graphics. So when you say graphics, do you mean, explain that a little bit, because there are different ways of labeling things. Some things are literally just decorative. If it is just decorative, you can just say it's a decorative element and not have to describe it further. But if it is things like an image, things like, I don't know, something where it's got some sort of promotional thing in it, talk about what the image is doing, why it's supporting it. Basically, just imagine the image wasn't there. Your text should basically be able to replace the image. How do you replace the image that you're writing about? Basically, only using text. And if you can do that, then you're writing very accessible alt text. Okay, so let's talk about dark mode. So dark mode is a very important concept to understand, because most people actually use dark mode. I think the stat was 68% or something like that of users that have a mobile phone have at one point turned on dark mode and used it, and most of us actually remain using it. Saves battery and all. But emails, as you see here, are responsive to dark mode, or can be responsive to dark mode. Certain companies decide to code in things where they can show different logos based on what rendering mode it's in, or some companies apply certain things to their logo to make them make them work in both modes. As you can see here, this company's logo, as much as it works in light mode, this My Company looks great. In dark mode, it looks terrible, and you can't actually see it. And this would be considered inaccessible. You can't see the company logo. So then in their case, they need to sort of flip their logo into a different color in order to make it accessible. But what if you only have one image and you can't flip the color? Well, I'm going to teach you a few tricks that you can use with only one image in a second that you can use across your website and your emails and any other content that you're creating where a dark mode flip might happen. But as you can see, your text also flips, your background colors also flip, and your buttons also flip. This will depend on the rendering client that the email is opened in. So if it's opened in Outlook, it might look different to if it's opened in Apple Mail, ever so slightly. That's why it's very important to look at those mobile previews of the email forensics in eShot. So here's a little tip. As you can see, there's Forfarnshire, which is a made-up county council. The logo is white out on a dark background, and it looks good on a dark background. But if I have that same logo in grey, it looks terrible. So what if my company logo was actually grey and my footer was in and I had to put it in my footer, but I can't recolor my company logo. It might be extra guidelines or something like that. What can you do to make the dark logo still work against the dark background? You can put a white outline around it. Why does this matter? Because if you take this logo and you put it on a white background, that white outline is now invisible. So you're using the same image. However, in one mode, it just makes sure that it's visible, and in another mode, it's completely, you cannot see that outline. It's a very good life hack to use when creating accessible content. All right, let's play a game. There's only 3 of us in the training today, so it should be nice and easy. But basically, I'm going to test how good you guys are at spotting accessibility fails. Obviously, I imagine you guys are accessibility experts by now because we're on slide 24 of my presentation. So come on, accessible or not? If you look over here, you can see Forfarnshire County Council is on a background. This is a green background, and basically, I want you to guess the contrast ratio and on this and tell me, is this image accessible? So is this over 4.5 to 1? Because obviously it's a graphical element, it's a logo. So is this over a 4.5 to 1 contrast ratio? So if you were to put this in the contrast checker, don't do that. Try guess it with your raw eye. Is this accessible? Yes or no? You don't actually need to guess the contrast ratio. You can if you want, but just put in the chat, is accessible? Yes or no? Okay, we have a yes, we have another yes, and we have a yes from Georgia. Okay, you are correct. The contrast ratio on this one is 6.01 to 1, which would mean yes, it would pass WCAG 2.2. Next one, again, a little obvious, but would this be accessible? No, no, no. Obviously, very easy one there. These get harder, don't worry. I'm going to challenge you in a second. Is this accessible? Yes or no? The blue is a little bit lighter, but this might be close. We have a yes from Georgia. Okay, we have a yes from Kay, and probably still a yes from Nina. The answer is actually yes. The contrast ratio is a 5.14 to 1. So yes, that would be considered accessible. Now we have a deep yellow, almost like a mustard color. Okay, we have on the verge. On the verge. It's a good analysis. And we have a no from Kay, and we have another no. Okay, probably no. Answer is no, so 1.6. Hard no on this one. Okay, getting a little bit harder now. Obviously, it's quite clear, but it's also a very bright color. What do we think? We have a yes, we have a no. Probably no. This one is no, actually. It's very close. That is basically 1.1% off being accessible. So it is pretty much a trick question. I know. Sorry. Accessible or not? So here we get much harder because I haven't taught you guys anything about this yet. We're going to have to talk about it in this slide. But here is a gradient. So this is a darker red, and over here is a lighter red. Is this still accessible? So we have a no, we have a yes. That's a yes. Okay. It actually is a yes. So this contrast ratio, the way you would work this out is you'd have to scan what is the lightest part and the darkest part, because it's obviously it's a gradient of two colors, so all the colors between it would be within that range. So as you can see here, if I eyedropper over here and compare that to white, it gives me 8.48 to 1. And then if I eyedropper over here, it gives me 5.9 to 1, which means from here to here, if you have a white image on top of it, it will be between these ranges, which is still over 4.5 to 1, which would be accessible. Okay, here's another gradient. Here, this time we have it from the top to the bottom. What do we think? We have it there? Yes. This must be a yes, because it's the library's colors. Kind of, no. So this one is a little bit of a trick, but this is, oh no, oh no, yes. So, as you can see here, it's this part. If you were to put the logo right at the top here, this is our new branding. Oh no. I have actually seen this happen quite often, where it can be inaccessible as long as they hopefully there's other elements of the branding that are accessible, and maybe the ratios are slightly different. Maybe this is a great check on the contrast checker, to see if it is accessible or not. Maybe something worth raising with your accessibility people. Could you send a screenshot or something like that, or send us a link? That'd be really interesting to see. But yeah, it would not be. Thank you. This would not be accessible. At least it wouldn't be accessible at the bottom. So as soon as you get around this area, it wouldn't be accessible. But above here, probably would. So imagine as dark as it is for 4.5 to 1 and above, it'll be fine. Anything under that wouldn't be. So if this is 6.4, this is 2.5. The 4.5 is about here. So if the library color is something like this, it's probably okay. Okay, we're doing a live email review. Yeah, so that one would be fine, and then this part, however, I'm not sure. That might still be okay, actually. I haven't checked. Look at the buttons. So the buttons should actually come up inside eShot as an accessibility warning, and we'll get over to that in about 10 minutes time from now, because Harry's actually going to show that off. So you can actually go and show a screenshot from eShot itself highlighting the accessibility error, and we'll show you how to do that shortly. Okay. So, just to finish off, I just wanted to say, obviously, put yourself in the shoes of others is very important to see how your audience can see content, and how they consume content. Just looked a couple of months ago. Okay, well, yeah, we'll show you in a second how you can show some of those buttons if they are accessible or aren't accessible. You should actually just check those things automatically. We do have crazy amounts of resources that help you create accessible content. One of those is our email accessibility checklist, which you can find on our website. Additionally, there are different tools and things you can note down to remember key principles of accessibility. This is one that I find very useful, so I recommend taking a screenshot of it. We will also send around the slides after this as well. We have other blog posts on our blog as well that all relate to accessibility. I recommend everyone check those out, as they do go over basically similar principles that we've gone over today. So we're gonna give the PowerPoint presentation, give the steering wheel over to Harry, so he can demo some eShot features of what helps eShot users who have accessibility needs, and also things that you can do for your audience when creating accessible content. So over to you, Harry. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. You should now be seeing the design screen within eShot. To begin, I'm just going to start up in the top right here. So if I hover over this icon next to the settings, we've actually got a tab within eShot called accessibility. And this isn't to do with the accessibility of your emails. It's for you, the user, yourself. And if you open this up, there's actually a few different useful tools within here you can use to make eShot itself more accessible. So just to touch on a few of the key ones, we've got bigger text, which the more and more I click on this, the bigger the page gets. We've got the dyslexia friendly font, which completely changed all aspects of the font within eShot. And we've also got line height, which is another key one, which sort of adds more white space in between each lines. But there are a range of ones in here, but those are sort of the key ones which you might find useful. So I'm just going to jump into an eShot design now, which I've got ready. We'll touch on alt text first. So as Jacob said, within eShot, it's really simple to set. So I'm just going to click on my logo here. You can see I've set my alt text to the forefront logo. Obviously with logos, it doesn't need to be too descriptive. Just let the user know what the logo is. Whereas an image like this, obviously it's one that needs to be descriptive. So if I click on my alt text for this, it's sort of describing what it is, a laptop screen with the email design popping out of it. So obviously, as Jacob said, depending on the image you're using, it might need to be slightly more descriptive. And I'm just going to scroll down slightly here. Next, we're going to touch on headings. So again, you've got to sort of follow that folder structure or Russian doll structure. So my heading 1 is animals by breed. And up in the top left-hand side, you can see this is set to a heading 1 and a size of 30. If I come down slightly, my heading 2, so my sub-brand is dogs, and that's set to a heading 2 with a slightly smaller size font. And then if I scroll down slightly more, I've got my dog breeds here, and these are set to a heading 3 with, again, a slightly less font size. And these are all set to heading 3s. So if I was to then jump to cats, for example, I should jump back to this heading 2, size 26. And if I'm then going to start an entire new article, I should jump back to my heading 1. Scroll down a little bit further now, and we'll touch on social icons. So yeah, as you can see, as Jacob said, the LinkedIn and the Facebook logo on this blue footer color are pretty much blending into the background, which basically they make them inaccessible in the background. So to change them, simply click on your social icons, and on the right-hand side, you can make them larger, but you can also change them to black, gray, or white is in here somewhere. White, depending on obviously the footer color you're using. And I'm just going to come out of my design quickly and just touch on the design previews. So as Jacob said, on the analytics side, we've got this email forensics tool under analytics, and I'm not going to click on it because it can take some time to load your previews. So I've already preloaded one here. So once you've opened up the email forensics tool, you'll see all the designs you've sent within that sub account, and you can click on the previews, and this basically gives you a whole range of previews for your email in all different clients, all different types of devices. So just to touch on a few, obviously we've got the most popular ones such as Outlook. So this is probably what you're most used to. And then we've also got mobile devices, so an iPad, but then also like an iPhone 11. And you can see here this, oh, the preview's not going to load. Okay, this one did. This one here completely changes, and it shows me what this email would look like if I was viewing it on an iPhone. And if I scroll down slightly further, we do actually have the dark mode ones as well. So just to open up one of these, you can see that my heading colors and button colors have all flipped from what you probably just saw in the design. And with my logo, I've actually put it on a white background so that it is still accessible in dark mode. So just to come back to eShot now, I'm going to touch on probably the most useful tool for accessibility within eShot. I'm just going to jump back into the design. And you can probably saw from before, I've labeled some elements as inaccessible, so there's such as this button, and others as accessible. So I'm just going to preview my design, and you're probably all used to this page within eShot. It's just handy for when you're sending tests. But what you might not know is on the right-hand side here, we've got this accessibility tab. So I'm just going to open that up. And you can see here, eShot's flagging to me that there's 5 instances of content within my design that aren't meeting WCAG AA. And obviously that's all well and good, but how can you go about fixing this? Or you can click the highlight button on the right. And you can see here it's put a red box around all the elements within my design that are actually inaccessible and don't pass WCAG AA, which again is all well and good, but you need to go about fixing those issues. So what I'm going to do is on the right hand side again, you've got this details tab. Clicking on this will actually open up a built-in checker. So I've got the color contrast checker on here. Just going to jump back to my design and copy the hex color for that inaccessible color. And I'm going to paste that into here, which again you can see is failing for WCAG AA. I'm just going to drag it slightly until it passes for small text. So this blue now should be accessible. So I'm going to copy the hex, jump back to my design, and put that onto my button and also my heading, and let that save. Preview my design again. Back to accessibility, and you can now see my instances has dropped from 5 all the way down to 3. And now if I click the highlight button again, my first instance is this link, but my button and heading from before are now accessible. So this is a really handy tool just when you are preview or when you finish with your email design and you're testing it, just always make sure to check this accessibility tab before you do so, as well as the SemForensics tool for dark mode and mobile devices. So that's the end of the features within eShot. I'll now open up to any other questions.
Hey guys, so yeah, any questions, anything you want to know about accessibility or eShot features, please feel free to ask in the chat. If not, no worries. We do have our live support feature on eShot. So if you do have any questions, or message to our team, and we'll be happy to respond and help you guys out with any sort of accessibility queries you might have. So yeah, any questions, anything we can help you guys out with. Yeah. Thank you very much, everybody, for being on today's session. We'll send round the follow-up. It's been lovely talking to you guys. Have to go. Thanks again, guys. Lovely to see you. And we'll see you hopefully in another one of these trainings. Bye-bye, everyone. Have a good day.
Thank you.